Welcome to the workshop, CRA Ready for SMEs. Starting soon. The Cyber Resilience Act is becoming more than a regulation. How prepared do you think your company is for CRA? Not prepared, slightly prepared, moderately prepared, well prepared, fully prepared? Today's sessions will focus on more frequently posed questions. You will discover the Cyberfort platform. We will start shortly. Thank you for joining the Cyberfort workshop. Welcome to the workshop, CRA Ready for SMEs. Starting soon. The Cyber Resilience Act is becoming more than a regulation. How prepared do you think your company is for CRA? Not prepared, slightly prepared, moderately prepared, well prepared, fully prepared? Today's sessions will focus on more frequently posed questions. You will discover the Cyberfort platform. We will start shortly. Thank you for joining the Cyberfort workshop.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Before we begin, I would like to inform you that this work will be recorded for processing and for documentation and follow-up purpose. So by remaining connected in this session, you acknowledge that this meeting might be recorded. So thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Mihaela Curcă. I am the project manager of the Cyberfort project from the Romanian National Cybersecurity Directorate. We are very pleased to have you with us. We have some representative from Cyberfort partners like Colombia, our coordinator, iEnergy Link, our technical integrator, Clone Systems, my colleagues from the Romanian Cybersecurity Directorate, cybersecurity experts, and some SMEs interested in understanding the Cyber Resilience Act and what this means in practice. Today's workshop has a very practical objectives. We want to have this to help SMEs understand the CRA, identifying what it may means for their businesses, and to explore the first concrete steps towards cybersecurity readiness. A few months ago, many discussions around the CRA were still focused on one single question: how will manufacturers comply? This, I think, we all heard. But another question, is becoming just as strategic as the previous one. Who will be competent enough to assess them? And this is an important shift. The CRA will not succeed if conformity assessment become only a documentary exercise. So cyber resilience is not about having a policy, having a checklist, or a file stored somewhere. Cyber resilience requires more than that, requires real technical judgment, understanding process architecture, secure development life cycles, vulnerability handling, risk assessments, testing, inspection, and the specific technologies behind products with digital elements. This is also why the recent ENISA work on technical competence requirements for CRA notified body is so relevant. I think you also the latest document from ENISA. And this reminds us that compliance must be supported by real expertise, not just by assumptions. For company preparing for CRA, this sends a very clear message. The quality of your technical documentation, your vulnerability handling process, your risk assessment, and your secure development practice will matter. And this is exactly where Cyberfort comes in. Because Cyberfort is designed to support small and medium-sized enterprises to move forward from awareness to practical actions. During today's workshop, we will discuss what the CRA means, what minimum cybersecurity measures SMEs should start implementing, and how to approach CRA readiness without large budget, and how maybe we will end it with the Cyberfort platform, because you will see how can support this journey, and you will see the vulnerability scanning, the compliance dashboard, the policy templates, all the risk assessment that you can do, the readiness scoring, and the whole roadmap generation. Before we begin, I invite you to take part in our web opening poll. I will ask my colleagues to create this poll. How prepared do you think your company is for CRA? I have to mention that there are no wrong answers. This is simply a starting point for our today's discussions. To officially open the workshop, I'm pleased to invite Mr. Paun, the Cyberfort project coordinator, the founder of iEnergy Link, to share a few words on why cybersecurity readiness matter, and what the projects, why the project is so important, and what will bring for SMEs, and why CRA is becoming not just a regulatory topic, but a business requirement. So, Mr. Paun, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mihaela. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for excellent preparation and for the invitation to this Cyberfort event, which is focusing on CRA readiness for small and medium enterprises. I would like to share a few thoughts about the outcomes of this European funded project, as this project it's now coming to an end after 20 months of implementation. But let's take the project and the ideas that I have prepared to share with all of you one by one. So Cyberfort stands from Strengthening Cyber Defense of Small and Medium Enterprises for Cyber Resilience Act compliance, as Mihaela already explained. And we are pleased to share with you that Cyberfort initiative already prepared a comprehensive combined concept and development of compliance management software solutions, and this is the objective of the event today, to share them with you, as it is part of the training program in the framework of the work program of the project. So by saying this, allow me to also share the fact that the project integrated the approach to enhance cybersecurity and the implementation of the Cyber Resilience Act requirements. We in the first 18 months, as the project will end at the end of July, in the first 18 months, we worked hard to develop this innovative program, helping small and medium enterprises to address Cyber Resilience Act and other standards. And we did this in a very efficient and effective cooperation with the entire consortium. So I will also introduce the consortium shortly. And yes, to move on with the objectives of this project, the strategic role of Cyberfort is to develop the CRA compliance and tools to deliver risks compliance and governance platform, to validate this compliance via the sector pilots. So we have a package of pilots addressing many complementary economic sectors, including energy, banks, and other complementary domains, providing CRA-focused training modules. So this event today, it's the main training event within the project so far. But please imagine that other segments of training have been addressed since the beginning, let's say the early beginning of the project, and all the partners supporting the implementation of the project work together to deliver these training programs in Greece, in Cyprus, and in Romania. Perhaps some of you, as I see, a very good participation, and this is thanks to excellent organization of the Romanian National Directorate for Cybersecurity, especially from Mihaela's side and her team. Thank you once again for that. So we are happy to see so many names also contributing and participating in this training session today. Ultimately, contribution to the national CRA support ecosystem, it's foreseen, and we are almost there. Those are the objectives. We have ambitious objectives, starting with the support of CRA implementation, advancing compliance through cybersecurity tool development for critical sectors, also automated tools, compliance and documentation, promoting CRA compliance via open source innovation, enhancing cybersecurity skills. This is what we are again doing since the beginning of the project, and the event today, it's focusing on enhancing the cybersecurity skills through training sessions. The last but one objective is addressing the dynamic evolution of CRA compliance tools for small and medium enterprises. And the last objective in line, it's to do with the integration via the cybersecurity frameworks and collaboration networks. What do we do to support SMEs and stakeholders? The project is supporting national authorities, and DNSC is leading this, aligning with the European Cybersecurity Competence Center and ENISA frameworks, legislative frameworks, creating synergies with CRA-focused projects, and building a very clear and structured CRA support mechanism for small and medium enterprises. What we expect from small and medium enterprises to understand, yes, we would like to address the regulatory obligation and to clarify it, as Mihaela explained. The obligation, it's quite complex, and we also want to transform the product development processes we would like the participant to understand the requirements for life cycle security discipline and the structured documentation we will offer at the end of this training as a package. Compliance, it's, as you very well know, continuously evolving, not a one-time checklist. To continue on the same line, Cyberfort, it's somehow linked to the engineering of Europe's cyber resilience under the CRA. We are not only defining and explaining CRA, we are operationalizing it, and we are engineering CRA compliance. And this is a strong joint effort of the consortium led by iEnergyLink from Romania, also working close with bolt-on technology from Cyprus, Clone Systems as technical coordinator and excellent partner in not only implementing, but since the designing of the proposal more than 2.5 years ago, Clone Systems supported Cyberfort concept and design very much. Thank you for that. Colombia Shipping Management, as this is another domain where we have pilots, and our colleagues will explain this later on. Delio from Cyprus, of course, the Romanian National Directorate for Cybersecurity, leading the training sessions, leading the communication, leading the technical work package in a very well and structured manner, and working in good cooperation with all the partners in the consortium. Elias Neocleos, also from Cyprus, and of course, last but not least, Eximprod Engineering, part of the Eximprod group, which is also very active in the area of cybersecurity and training, as they have the cyber arena already in operation since, I believe, more than 1 year. Yes, so here I would like to share the fact that CRA compliance in practice, it's reflected in the use cases, and we have the maritime sector on board for CRA compliance workflows. We have the finance sector securing data in transit validation led by Delio. The maritime sector, it's led by our partners from Cyprus, Colombia Shipping Management, very much working on these compliance workflows and very much interested to improve the cybersecurity requirements and solutions and products for their shipping and management. To move on, the energy sector is another domain where the critical infrastructure vulnerability has been assessed, and this is led by Eximprod Engineering. Complementary, we have the fourth use case dealing with cybersecurity for SMEs, service alignment with CRA, and this is led by the technical coordinator, Clone Systems. Well, what I would like to briefly address is also the focus of the Cyberfort, which is to do with first, compliance, second, with automated evidence collection, also with AI-assisted documentation, and actionable outputs and feedback loops. Yeah, so this is more or less about the content of the project. I would like also to share the fact that the project has been communicated and the impact of Cyberfort has been measured since the first 6 months of the project, and we organized with the kind support and effective support of the Romanian National Directorate for Cybersecurity several events, international events, like the one on the 4th of March in the Romanian Parliament. I'm saying this and sharing this with you simply because in this framework, we are, as I said, coming to an end, and we are happy to share that the final conference is going to be organized on the topic of cyber resilience from policy to practice, strengthening the small and medium enterprise cyber resilience for CRA compliance, and this will take place on the 24th and 25th of June this month, in about 2 weeks' time, in the European Parliament in Brussels. You are all kindly invited to take the opportunity and register. With the registration, it's still opened. We have a limited number of seats, and the seats are being occupied every day. So this is just an overview of the agenda. It's almost final, and it will be released, I believe, Mihaela, very soon. The Cyberfort project, it's again an integrated approach to enhance the small and medium enterprises cybersecurity posture through the implementation of the CRA requirements, and it emphasizes the development and dissemination of the tailored compliance tools, cybersecurity best practices, and educational resources. So again, this is just an encouragement for you all interested in participating in this event. We are, for the moment, organizing it in physical format, but I'm not hiding. I'm in Brussels, and I will do my very best to ensure the logistics for a probably, hopefully, remote participation. So for the ones who are not able to travel, I hope we will be able to find the best possible ways to share the final outcomes of the Cyberfort project, also remotely. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much, and happy to take any potential question or to contribute to the discussion now and later during the event. Thank you very much, Mihaela. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Paun. Thank you for the opening remarks. We are now moving fast to our first practical session. The minimum cybersecurity measures that small and medium-sized enterprises should start implementing. One of the most common concern among SMEs is where do we start? The answer may not be always to buy expensive tools or create overlay complex processes. Very often, the first step is to understand your assets, manage vulnerabilities, apply patches, enable multi-factor authentication, and all this stuff that this may sound like basic measures, but they are the foundation for cyber resilience. So I'm pleased to invite Marius Ioanu from Columbia Ship Management to present a practical roadmap for SMEs. Marius, the floor is yours. So please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mihaela. Can everybody see my presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So, hello everyone. My name is Marius. I'm the head of cybersecurity under Colombian Group and Columbia Ship Management. Our role at the project is mainly as a pilot for the maritime industry, let's say, representing the maritime industry. At this session, we will set the expectations, let's say. It is a more practical, jargon-free session. By the end, you will be able to have a one-page minimum security checklist, simple one, with a 90-day plan that you can actually run, let's say. This applies to SMEs mainly, okay, not to enterprises, let's say, as it's really foundational for enterprises at the end of the day. But whatever the sector is that you belong, let's say, it's applicable to everyone. You don't need to be heavily technical to understand and act on these measures that we're going to show. Therefore, let's start. Let's see, okay. Oh. So why a minimum baseline and why now? So the reality for SMEs is that the attackers target the easiest door. So let's say the quick wins, not the biggest name. Small firms are now becoming more and more primary targets. Their budget is tight, so they cannot have dedicated security teams. They leave basic gaps because they have an IT guy, which they baptize him as the ninja of everything, and he tries to catch up with all the things that are happening. Therefore, the technical controls, let's say, that they are in place, most of the times they cannot catch up the attackers, which they have unlimited time and unlimited resources sometimes to perform their actions. And one phishing email can lead most of the times to an Apache system, or a lost laptop can halt operations for days. Customers, assurance partners increasingly ask for proof for basic controls. So we saw those to many of the group companies that we have, not only to the maritime, that people are becoming more and more aware about cybersecurity, and they have like a basic request to start doing business with each other, to have at least a baseline of controls. Neither those are national systems that are utilized or other world standards, for example, ISO, SOC 2 Type 2, and so on. So what are the good news? The good news is that you don't need always a security operations center or a huge budget to remove the everyday risk. So the idea of that you need huge budget to have basic baselines, let's say, in place. It's not a reality. There is a short list of low cost, high impact, the ones they called quick wins, or to tackle the low hanging fruits, as we used to say in cybersecurity. So that can block large majority of attacks. CRA and NIS2 make these basics as an expectation, not an option. So the NIS2, which is about the critical entities, let's say, and CRA, they are more, let's say, considering most of the controls that we are going to show today as standards and not something that is an exception, and they are covering, let's say, the 50% of their requirements at least that they have. So as I said, today we are going to see a practical roadmap of 10 measures that you can start even from this week. Now, what are these 10 measures at a glance? First of all, you cannot protect what you don't know. So first of all, you need an asset inventory. If you are in an industry which has IT and OT, you need both of them. So then, as soon as you know what you have, then you need to start finding the weak spots. The vulnerability management, those can be neither technical vulnerabilities or other type of vulnerabilities that exist in your environment. Then you implement a patch management system. So it's a combination usually of an RMM system that gives you the visibility of the inventory and can track also the different versions that they are running on your environment and so on. Then you start by reviewing, let's say, which identities have multi-factor authentication. So the multi-factor authentication, it's something really well known to almost everyone, to all the services that are utilized, but still we can see environments that they are not enforcing the MFA, neither for the easiness of access or for other reasons that can still keep the legacy systems up and running. Then you make sure that you have backups so that you are able to recover. Then you need to build a concrete incident reporting procedure so you can document, let's say, when an incident happens, how it happened, what were the gaps that were identified, and so on, because it's going to feed the overall mechanism of improvements. Then software update procedures. So you need to stay as much as you can at the latest versions, because now this gap is changing dramatically with AI. So if you have, for example, in the past, a software update policy, which was saying, we need to patch the critical vulnerabilities in 3 days, for example, and the high in 7 days. Now, critical, high, and medium and low, they are becoming irrelevant because the time of exploitation is really, really minimized. So the attackers can draft exploits faster. So the defenders needs to patch faster. Therefore, all these windows needs to be revised in nowadays that they used to be standard software patching policies. Then if you have external suppliers, a supplier security policy, let's say, and to map all your suppliers, map all your pipelines and so on for external trust, it's something really crucial for you, because if you have suppliers that they are offering you something that you rely on and also you offer it to your clients, then it's really important that you safeguard this thing from the source as much as you can with due diligence checks and so on. Then you have to go to the weakest spot, as always, as everyone says, and it's the truth, the employees and the people that they are interacting every day with the different external, neither shareholders or internally through the company, and they need to be aware. So you need to train your people, train them to understand as much as you can from samples, from real use case scenarios, to show them how they can detect. If they are not sure, to give them a pipeline, who to ask, and make sure before they interact with any content that they understand at least the basics of cybersecurity with a concrete training plan. And then you document down everything as much as you can. Now let's start more in detail of the things that I said. Asset inventory. As I said before, you can't protect what you don't know that you have. And as Muhammad Ali was saying, the eyes cannot punch what they can't see. So you need to know exactly what you have. You list every device, every server, every application, every cloud service, every identity that you have in the organization. And identities now are becoming more and more critical rather than the systems, because of all the automations that companies are using, and they need machine identities. So all these things needs to be mapped to know exactly what is your threat landscape. Then you record the owner, the purpose, and whether it holds sensitive data. And all these documents are living documents. So it's not something that I built it today and I can keep it for 12 years, for example, of 20 years. You have always to go back, review it in a standard manner. For example, if you know that your organization is growing fast, then you need to minimize this window of updating your inventories. Those things can be automated with different tools, especially for IT inventories. Now, you have to document different practices. What do we mean by that? You write down how things are set up and who is responsible for them. Those are called processes. You capture the key configurations, accounts, and recovery steps. So in case that you have an incident, you know exactly this is the guy or the lady who is the asset owner. I have to go back. They have to initiate this process. All these things for policies, procedures, they need to be mapped, and the team that is responsible for updating them needs to communicate them also with the different owners. So they are aware that in case that something happens, this is a plan, this is a procedure, this is a policy, and make them sign it. So they need to read it and make it an official document in terms of governance. What we call the institutional knowledge is really important. So the more things that are recorded down, this knowledge can be transferred, and this knowledge becomes permanent to the organization. So you don't rely on one person's knowledge. It needs to be documented so it can be transferred. Next step, vulnerability management, as we said. So you need to reduce your weaknesses as much as you can. So you need to reduce your risk surface. You need to regularly scan systems and different software for for known weaknesses. You need to prioritize each fix by risk. So if, for example, you have 50 euros and you want to spend them on a specific cybersecurity measure that you want to implement, how you are going to do that? If you don't know exactly which are my crucial points, what of this is the highest risk, let's say, and exposure for the company, and if this vulnerability has high impact to the organization, the business elements of it, then you can't prioritize. So you need to do that, map all these things, map all these risks, and then prioritize a plan slowly to start investing at the crucial elements and the crucial jewels of the organization. If you have a patch management system or not, patch management could be a manual procedure or an automated procedure. That means you can have different application of security updates, let's say, by prioritizing the internet-facing systems, which are the most exposed ones, and then you track which of them are still unpatched and which of them were patched with the latest version. The procedures of these software updates is that at the enterprise environments, most of the automatic updates are disabled, not because they don't know how to do it, because they need to have a version control of different elements that can affect the smooth pipeline of the organization. At the SME level, most of the times, because there is not enough personnel, activating the automatic updates is not a bad idea, but you need to make sure that this can be safely done based on your environment. So if you have, for example, an automation which is connected to a critical Windows server, let's say SCADA system, then you are not going to just leave the automatic updates up and running, because maybe this update is going to be put by Microsoft or whatever operating system it runs. It can create more issues and more downtime versus of leaving a vulnerability up and running. So it's everything, risk versus control that you need to take so you can minimize the overall exposure of the company. Then you need to define who approves and this let's say standard management and patching procedures that you need to have, who is approving them and how they are deployed. You have to test them before you deploy, and then you replace or isolate systems that are no longer supported. For us at the maritime sector, sometimes this is really important because we have OT systems that are running that neither they didn't have at that point of time when the hardware was created. They didn't even knew what is a software development lifecycle. They just created a software that was supporting a specific hardware, and then we need to find a way this system to stay as secure as possible in an isolated environment without affecting the daily routine. So we create perimeter protections, we make sure that nobody has access to it. And again, it's a measure of control without spending, let's say, it's not a matter of budget or technical control, it's a matter of concept, and isolate systems that they have to be there for the business to operate, but on the other side, we have to find a way to secure them as much as we can with different controls. Now, multi-factor authentication, I said before, you have to lock your doors as much as you can. I always give an example with multi-factor, which is the door that we have in our houses. So nobody in his house has a simple door which opens only with one lock and it can be opened by everyone. So it uses a highly secure door that has 3 times, let's say, pipes in it, so it can lock hardened to the door, to the wall, and so on. So it cannot be breached easily. That means we have to replicate this way of thinking to the identities and the way that we protect our main door. Always the main door for authentication is the identity. So we have to put the same concept, and the easier if it becomes for us, it's the easier also for the attacker. So we have to make a way forward for that, which is the MFA that was designed years ago with that concept. So neither you use an app or a token based on the criticality of the system and the sensitivity of the system, then you have to by default activate it to all the administrator roles. So there is no chance an administrator account, neither is a machine identity or for backups, or it's a normal account. of administrator that it's without MFA. These things can be controlled either with access policies or other elements that can help you do that. This is a quick win because it can stop a large majority of exposed password, let's say, attacks or password spraying attacks or other account takeover situations for business email compromise and central. If this is combined with a complexity policy, let's say, on passwords and via password manager, this is a really good quick win for a lot of organizations. Then you have to go to the employees because most of the times they will start saying, this is making our life harder. We have to authenticate again and again and so on. So people are at your first line of defense. They are the weakest link most of the times, but they have to be see it as the opposite way around, so they will not be the weakest link. If you run short, you have to push regular trainings there with learning management systems, phishing simulations, and so on. You have to make it easy. You don't have to make them feel that they are blamed. You take the report, you find the weakness, you retrain, and then you reinforce it in different ways. Backups. You need to be ready to recover in case of an incident. If you don't have a plan, and if you have only one mean of backup, this means you have no plan. So you need to have always 3-to-1 backups, one offline backup, and then you need to have the pipeline and the procedures to restore from one of it that you are testing frequently. So you make the backups, you test them every 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 months that they are working on a testing system, and then you are sure that, okay, my backup is workable. If I need to restore it, it takes 30 minutes, 4 hours, whatever it is. This is going to define my RTO time, so I know exactly if I have an incident, in 4 hours time, my critical systems will be up and running. Then for regulatory purposes, if you are falling under NIS2 or you want to be compliant, let's say, with the proper way, then you need to always report all these incidents that may happen with lessons learned, what actions we've taken, and the fixing measures, and to be signed by the top management. Now, supply chain. If you have supply chain feeding your overall business, then you need to have checks on your partners and due diligence before they are onboarded. Not extreme things, but at least the baseline. The same baseline that you follow, the same baseline should transmit it to your supply chain. And why it matters? Because attackers try usually now to infect the supply chain because the impact to that they will achieve is going to be bigger, because with one catch, then they can get the whole supply chain. And that's why you can see increasing now all the attacks to different dependencies, to different modules that they are imported to code, and so on, because it's easier to distribute the malwares and the different, let's say, exploits that they want to fulfill. And from one weak link, it can expose the whole organization, the reputation of the organization, and it affects the business. So CRA pushes a lot on the supply chain security, the obligations, because it asks you to map all the dependencies that you have, neither those are software-based or hardware-based. Now, a quick self-assessment that needs to be done by everyone that runs under an SME, for example, is how many of these 10 measures your company applies today. And then you can just take the number. If it's 0 from 3, you have to start again from the basics. 4 to 6, it's a solid start, but you need to close more. And then from 7 to 10, you are formalizing a really good baseline. This is a checklist that you can follow, let's say, as minimum security checklist. And now let's go to action, from checklist to action. We do first MFA, backups, patching. Second, we do a quick housekeeping, asset inventory, documentation practices, procedures, and so on, as I said before. Then we schedule and resource. So if we want to have high impact with less effort and control, let's say, the overall pipeline, we have to go to vulnerability management, we have to go to the suppliers, we have to create this response plus, and so on, and then we make it a habit. So everyone is aware, we change our culture, employee awareness, and software update procedures. Okay, let's take a simple scenario of an attack and how it unfolds and how all these controls are stopping, let's say, each stage. You have a phishing email that the staff receives, let's say, with a fake link and a malware. So if you train them with employee awareness, they don't click. Attack chain stopped. Let's say that they click. The attacker captures the login credentials, you have MFA. At the second step, again, the whole supply chain stops. Let's take again, they click, they bypass the MFA because it was really advanced. We go to the next step, which they try to exploit and pivot to the whole organization. So now they have access to one account and they want to pivot to the whole organization. How we can do that? If they don't find any vulnerabilities, we have hardened environments, we patch our systems, and so on. We minimize the exposure and the probability of someone pivot because it needs time and he's going to be detected at that point of time. So the overall situation, it's controlled up to 0.3, let's say, because we are getting more time to react. And then we go to the worst case scenario, which they are also find the vulnerability and they exploit it and they run a ransomware. Okay, we have a backup, we have a solid incident response plan. We know our recovery times. So in 4 hours, we'll be back, for example. Now, let's map it a little bit to the CRA. So risk-based security and asset visibility, it's one of the requirements. You have asset inventory, you have vulnerability management. Another requirement, handle vulnerabilities and ship updates. It's a software development lifecycle. So you have patch management, you have update procedures. How do you secure your supply chain? Supplier security policies and procedures. Document and prove your security, documentation practices. So all these things are important. Now, if we map it a little bit to NIS2, let's say at least this basic then baseline, strong access control. You have MFA, incident handling and timely reporting, incident report procedures. You have a template, you fill it in, you document it. You know lessons learned, you fit your overall system. Business continuity and recovery, you have backups. There are a ton of other things to be done. Yes, of course, but we are always saying about the baselines. Staff security training, employee awareness, and you need to document all these trainings down and follow up continuously with that. And let's say some myths. We are too small to be a target. Automated attacks are scanning everyone, and size is not a shield. Antivirus is enough? Of course it's not. It's one layer of protections to the endpoint. You need MFA, you need patching, you need backups that matter more than, let's say, on an enterprise level support of an organization. We have backups, we are safe. An untested backup is like it does not exist, as I said before. And you have to always have an online backup, which an offline backup, which in case that the online backup fails, then you can restore to it somewhere, stored somewhere else. And then compliance is just paperwork. It's not just paperwork. It's a set of standard procedures and controls that are suggested by a control framework, so it can streamline your security operations and it can force you to have evidence for it and not just saying, yes, I have done it without evidence. Now, first 7 days, you turn MFA on, you confirm backups are running, you see your automatic updates. On the first 30 days, you build a simple asset inventory, you patch your internet-facing systems, you run a short awareness session, you draft a one-page incident plan. And then at the longer term, you start your regular vulnerability scans, you review your supplier access and contracts, you document all your key configurations and procedures for restoring, and you set a routine of patch, test, and train. Now, in summary, as I said, you have to start small and you have to start as up. You don't have to do everything in one batch. So each measure you tick off makes the next attack less likely to succeed, as I showed you at the pipeline, and brings you closer to a CRA and NIS2 readiness. That's all from my side. I hope it was simple. I tried to stay on time, Mihaela.
Yes, thank you, Marius. This was very interesting and very, very on point. And before we continue, I invite everyone to reflect on this quick self-assessment that and the poll that I've added into our chat to reflect about how many of these measures does your company already have in place, and take into account that this is not about judging the maturity of your company. It's about identifying where each company can begin. Thank you, Marius. This was a very useful reminder that we need to be ready and to build step by step. And we need to consider the two dimensions of the CRA, the organizational dimension and the product dimension. And for SMEs, the most important message is that cyber resilience starts with visibility, prioritizing, and consistency. You cannot protect what you don't know, and you cannot improve what you don't measure. So first we need to measure and then to improve. Now we are continuing with a very technical session, CRA explained simply for SMEs. For many companies, we know that the Cyber Resilience Act, this may sound very complex, legal, 200 pages, Brussels give it to us and take care of it. But in reality, the cyber resilience is becoming highly relevant for any company developing, integrating, distributing, or relying on product with digital elements. This session will help us clarify these essential questions. What is the CRA? Does it apply to my company? What are the obligations? What are the timelines? And how does CRA relate to other framework? As I saw some question into the chat related to NIS2 and some other regulatory frameworks. I'm pleased to invite Michael Ioanu from Bolton Technologies to guide us through these key points.
So thank you very much. My name is Michael Ioanu from Bolton Technologies. Our main contribution, let's say, at the Cyberfort project was to analyze the law, the CRA, and how it can be implemented in the GRC platform that we built, and how that can assist the companies to be compliant with the CRA. And also, before to start, something that you mentioned, Mihaela, before, I think is very important, and also Marius. The key here, the keyword is proportionality, that we don't need to do everything that is in the market. The CRA doesn't ask everyone to do everything. And there's also no silver bullet, like one solution to solve everything. The security needs to be proportionate based on the risks that our product carries and nothing more. No, I haven't started yet, so can you go in the beginning? So next slide. Okay, before we start with the law, we'll talk a bit about food. I'm a food lover, eating obviously, but I also enjoy cooking. And I also like this analogy between the food and the CRA compliance. So let's think about any package, about the food that we buy. On the side, there's a label that it contains the different ingredients. It warns us if there's any allergies, if it contains nuts, milks, or whatever that can cause us any harm. It also provides us with expiration dates, and also tells us who made the specific product. And in general, we read the label without even thinking about it. And of course, we trust it. And this is how we have been living for the last, let's say, 100 years now. Now, on the right side, we see this type of analogy with the same idea, but for the digital product. The ingredients is the list of software components inside that we call an SBOM. The allergy warning becomes a list of security flaws, the vulnerabilities. And the use by date becomes how long the maker promises to send security updates. And of course, who the maker is. Yeah, okay. So, as I said, I mean, this about the food industry, it has been there for 100 years. We have accepted these rules about food, and we can't sell anything without saying what's inside of it. We have to warn people the things that could harm them. We have to date it, and if something goes wrong, we have to recall it. And the person who made it is the responsible of this and not the shopper. And this is why the CRA is shifting the burden of identifying the vulnerabilities from the user to the maker of the product. So it's simply what it takes to sell to millions of people and how we can trust them and how they can trust you. Digital products grew up with none of it. We didn't have it until now. And the CRA just takes some of these of the food industry and applies them to the software. So when you ask why we should comply, the honest answer is because it's becoming the basic ticket to sell our product. So for this agenda, we have 5 simple questions, and I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. What is the CRA? Does it apply to me? If I'm a smaller company, an SME, what do I have to do? When are the deadlines? How does it sit next to the NIS2, the GDPR, and any other of the regulations that you may already know? There was also a question about it. If we're complying with NIS2, I saw it in the chat. I don't know, Michaela, if you saw it. That if am I complying with NIS2, do I also comply with the CRA? And we'll spend most of the time on the first 3 because that's where the real decisions are. And if you remember nothing else today, remember that the first real deadline isn't 2027, it's September 2026, and we're going to see it later. Sorry, I have to change it. So let's start with what is the CRA? I guess to be here, we already know more or less what it is. We know that it affects our company, but for the sake of the presentation, the CRA, Cyber Resilience Act, is the first EU law that puts security rules on the product themselves for their whole life. That last part matters. Most security rules so far have been about how you run your company, your organization. And this one is about the thing that you actually ship, about the product. So there are 4 big ideas. The products with digital elements, that's any hardware or software you sell in the EU, from a router to a small toy, all the way up to an operating system. Then we have the security has to be built from the start and not bolted at the end. And we have seen it until now in the development life cycles of the different organizations that we have been, the main focus, the budget, the resources was how to deliver it. And at the end, we might have done a security assessment to see how secure our product is. And last one, we need to show everyone with a CE marking, that without the CE marking, at the end of the day, we won't be able to enter the EU market and will not be able to sell in the EU. And one more thing to mention, the CRA is a regulation. That means it's directly applicable to all member states of the EU. Thank you. So let's see first what is in the scope and what is out. We have the hardware with digital elements, like the Internet of Things devices, routers, laptops, smart appliances, industrial control, standalone software like operating systems, mobile and desktop applications, firmware, components placed on the market separately, including some software libraries, or it could be a bit of the code behind an application, behind maybe a smart doorbell, for example, a remote data processing solution, integral to a product's function. And what is out? We have the medical devices, cars and aircraft, pure cloud services, software as a service, which these are falling under the NIS2. Non-commercial, free and open source solution might have it a bit lighter than the other products, and products that are exclusively for national security and defense. We can also mention here, it's also maritime, which is out of the scope. So the CRA sorts the products into 4 groups. The default group, which is the 90% of the products, and you can check yourself and sign a short declaration, check the securities that you have in place, and complete the assessment by yourself. Then we have the important groups, which divided into class 1 and class 2. The important class 1 are things like password managers, VPNs, that you can still check yourself as long as you follow the official standards. And important class 2 are things like firewalls, intrusion detection systems, security incident event management solutions. And then this is usually required for an outside body to check them. And then we have the top group, which is the critical products like smart meter gateways, security chips that may need a formal certification. So the riskier product that we have, the more outside eyes that we need. We need a third party to come and assess what security controls we have in place, and of course, how we can improve them. Let's move on to this. Okay. Now, about the second question we have, does the CRA apply to my company? In brief, the test is simple. If you put your product with digital elements on the EU market, you have a role under this law, and not role brings duties. There are 3 roles. We have the manufacturer, the importer, and distributor. You can count as the manufacturer, even if you don't build anything. You can put your brand on someone else's product, and then you become a manufacturer. This is where we need to be careful about where we place our product. And each one has different responsibilities. Of course, the manufacturers, they need to be compliant in full. The importer and distributor, they need to assess the product that they import within the European Union and assess whether or not it's secure enough to import them and distribute the product in the European market. Let's move on to the next slide. So if we're a manufacturer, what we should do? There's 6 basic things. I mean, it's something that was also presented in a more technical manner from Marios, what needs to be done. So first is to perform a risk assessment. From here, we will understand what are the risks of our product and which security controls we should implement and what controls should apply on the product itself. Then second is to build the security in and ship it safely by default, without any vulnerabilities, without any sensible settings out of the box. Everything, the best practice of security needs to be built in by default. Number 3, have to find a way and fix and report the security flaws with free updates. Then number 4, we have the software bill of materials. Keep a list of the software parts, whatever is included in our product as a software bill of material, the SBOM, and which will be including all the ingredients and will be able to identify any vulnerabilities that are associated with the list of materials. Number 5 is to declare the support period. We need to promise a support period and stick to it. Think of it like a use by date, usually at least 5 years. And 6, we need to write up your paperwork, sign the declaration, and put up the CE marking before we sell it to the European market. And of course, on top of that, we have the reporting. If there's a serious flaw identified, we need to, as soon as possible, inform the authorities, inform the users, and patch the security flaw that has been identified. So the third question is about the smaller companies, about the SMEs, and what they need to do. To be straight, the CRA does not let the small companies off. We still need to implement and all the security controls that have been identified from the risk assessments that we performed. For example, a 2-person startup has to meet the same core rules as an enterprise. Security by design needs to be applied as well. Free updates are still applied. The CE marking is also applicable. And of course, we need to also report it, no matter how small you are or a big organization. Some good news, as per Article 33, the law goes a bit more simpler on the paperwork. That the small companies can use a simpler, shorter documentation form, and the official bodies have to accept it. And additionally, we have more that the member states, they need to assist small, medium enterprises with different tools, with awareness seminars, and find all the different means in order to make it much easier for the SMEs to be also compliant with the CRA. Let's move on. So until now, there are some practical support for the SMEs. We have ENISA self-assessment tool. It's a free checklist for small firms. It tells you where you stand and what needs to be fixed. The national response teams that handle reporting have to run help desks, and small firms get priority. ENISA also runs the platform you use to report and a database of known flaws to track against too. It will be easier and more transparency about the flaws that have been identified. There's also our own GRC platform, of course, additional to the different tools that are provided by the different member states and also by the ENISA itself. Our platform, and it's also part of this on how to assist the SMEs. It's a more or less a GRC platform that puts, let's say, everything in one place, easier to identify vulnerabilities through a vulnerability scanner that we have incorporated in the platform. We have the policies, procedures that needs to be in place. We have, and also applicable to the organization, we have the risk assessments that it's very user-friendly for anyone, either a compliance officer or anyone within the organization that can go through and identify which risks are applicable to the product and how and which controls can be associated with this risk to minimize the risk. And the different assessments that could be we can go through for a self-assessment itself in order to provide with CE marking for the product. Now let's move forward a bit to the timeline. So the CRA became a law in 2024, and this is how where the clock started for the CRA. In June 2026, the rules about official checking bodies started. In September 2026, the reporting duty starts. And I flagged this one also for a reason that I will explain on the next slide. And this is why I believe that September 2026 is one of the most important milestone. Then we have December 2027 that the whole law is in force. And from that day, without any CE marking, it means that we're not going to sell in the EU. Now we're sitting in the middle of 2026, so the reporting deadline isn't far off at all. It's months away, and full compliance follows up in 15 months. So this is a slide about that I would want most of you to remember. Everyone thinks that, and they might be a bit reluctant about being compliant with the CRA, that the deadline is December 2027. But the one that actually hits first is September 2026. And here's why, and this is a trap that many organizations might fall into. The reporting duties cover products that are already out there, even the ones that we shipped maybe years ago. There's no free pass for all products when it comes to reporting. If a product of ours is in the field, is in the market, and attackers are exploiting a flaw that already exists, then the clock starts. And it's quite fast. Within 24 hours, an early warning, within 72 hours, a fuller report, and within 14 days of having a fix ready for a final report. So this is where we miss about the compliance, the overall compliance. If we don't have the means to be able to identify the flaw, if we don't have the security controls in place to identify a breach, identify the vulnerabilities, if we don't have the bill of materials in place, we won't be able to see what has been affected. And without all these, we won't be able to be compliant with the requirement within September 2026. So in essence, what Marios has presented before, more or less all these, they need to be in place in order for the organizations to be able to identify the breaches and be able to do to be compliant with this requirement of September 2026. So now let's discuss about what is the alignment, let's say, with the NIS2 and GDPR with the CRA. And this is, again, another practice that we have done within our project in the alignment of the different organizations to assist the SMEs within our Cyberfort product to be able, by being compliant with one requirement or one policy, to see how this could also comply with the different other regulations. Of course, we said this in the beginning, CRA, NIS2, GDPR, they're three different things, three different regulations or directives, three different laws, let's say. The CRA protects the product, the NIS2 protects the service that is running, and of course the critical infrastructure, and GDPR protects the people, personal data. So it also applies to different organizations. The CRA is for the makers, the importers, the sellers. The NIS2 is for organizations running important services. And the GDPR, any organization that is handling personal data. Let's move on to different slide. No, stay there, stay there. Ah, okay. Go to the next one. Yeah. So in a way, all these regulations, they have policies or security controls that they overlap each other, of course. You might have a security control that is protecting the personal data. It also protects the critical infrastructure for any vulnerabilities. It protects also your product itself. We talked about, again, it was in the presentation of Marios that he presented about the different means that is required for the incident response. This is also another overlapping requirement. The GDPR, you need to notify the Data Protection Commission for a breach of data within 72 hours without undue delay. NIS2, still you need to inform the authorities, and the CRA, as we saw before, we need to again inform the authorities for any breach that happened to our product. Therefore, by having within the organization an incident response management plan, the different the procedure in place on how the breach, the incident, or the event has been identified, how you escalate it, how you mitigate it, and then how do you report it if that has led to be a breach. Then by having one policy in place, you're covering all three regulations requirements. Then let's talk about the fines, about what happens when things go wrong. The fines are real. We have up to 15 million euros or 2.5% of the global turnover. But honestly, the fines might not be that much of important. And we've seen this also with the GDPR. It's also a matter of the reputational damage of the product itself, that if there's a breach, then, and we've seen this happening with password managers in the past, which is also included in the important class 2, that if there's a breach, then they might lose a lot of users using that product, and that will cost them a lot more than 15 million or 2.5% of the annual revenue. And even worse, they might lose the CE marking, they might lose access to the market, and they won't be able to sell their products within the European Union. So, a practical readiness checklist, what needs to be done, and this is something that we can start from today, from tomorrow. The 6 steps is to list our products, and each of one work out your role and its risk group, build the SBOM, software bill of materials, the different ingredients, because that's the base for the September 2026 reporting. Set up the flow handling, the vulnerability management, watch for any problems, fix them, report them. Number 4, fix your supplier contracts. Push these duties down to the supplier. Based on the product, you can also do an audit check of the supplier if they're also compliant with the CRA. Prepare the paperwork, the policies, the different technical documentation, the risk assessments, and then plan to the dates, reporting for the September 2026, full compliance by December 2027, and work backwards from there. So for closing, this is more or less in simple terms, as simple as possible, about the CRA, which applies from a 2-person product to a giant organization. Don't forget that September 2026 comes first and not December 2027. And happy to take any questions if required. I haven't seen the chat.
Yeah, I've tried to answer some of them, but if you have another perspective or something to be added, please.
And I will go through them and try to answer them.
Thank you, Michael,
chat. Thank you very much.
your intervention, and I think a key takeaway here is that the CRA readiness starts with, as Michael said, understanding whether and how your company is affected. Once this is clear, organization can start prioritizing actions in a very clear manner. And another key challenge for SMEs is the CRA readiness, is that the CRA readiness can quickly become complex and time consuming. And we are trying through Cyberfort to address this automation problem by helping companies to streamline compliance tasks and this risk assessment, all the documentation, all the readiness scoring, and to turn cybersecurity in a more accessible way. Because this, we talk with many companies, this can be very overwhelming. So we are trying to help on this. We will now take a short 10 minutes break, if you allow me, and please stay connected and return at 11, let's say 11:35 or 30, when we will continue with the session focus on how SMEs can start CRA readiness without large budgets, because this is another problem that we need to cover in our sessions. See you later in 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we are now back. Our next our next section will address a very important concern for small and medium-sized enterprises. How can we start the CRA readiness if we don't have a large cybersecurity budget? Now, this is a key question because compliance should not be an obstacle for SMEs. It should become a very structured process through better security, better trust, and better competitiveness. The important idea is that compliance starts with processes, priorities, and governance, and not necessarily with very expensive tools. This session will explore how the organizational and technical measures, what SME should prioritize first, open source and low-cost solutions, common mistakes to avoid, and how to build a realistic cybersecurity roadmap. I am pleased to invite my colleague, Tudor Iorgulescu, from the Romanian National Cybersecurity Directorate, to lead this session. Tudor? Thank you.
Hello. Good. So, hello everyone, and thank you. My name is Tudor Iorgulescu. I work as an expert in legal policies and cybersecurity standardization within the Regulatory Affairs Directorate of the Romanian National Cybersecurity Directorate, DNSC. In my colleagues' sessions, the Cyber Resilience Act itself is explained along with the minimum cybersecurity measures it points to. So I'm not going to repeat the regulation or the checklist. My job in the next half hour is different. And I think it is the question most of you actually came here with. How do I, as a small or medium company, get started when I do not have a big budget, a security team, or a lot of spare time? Here is the promise of my session. By the end, I want you to see CRA readiness not as frightening, expensive project, but as a sequence of small, mostly free decisions that you already know how to make it in other parts of your business. And I want you to leave with one concrete first step you can take on Monday morning that costs absolutely nothing. I'm speaking to you from the regulator side of the table, so I will also try to show you what good enough really looks like from a national authority's point of view. And because my own work is on legal policy and standardization, I will stay close to what the CRA actually requires. I'm not going to gloss over the law. My aim is to take that legal substance and make it genuinely practical to turn into clear, low-cost steps you can act on. So today you will get both, the regulatory grounding and the hands-on how do I start. Let's begin with the single biggest misunderstanding I run into. So let me name the feeling that is probably in the room. Think back to the poll we opened with. How prepared do you think your company is for the CRA? If you are like most companies, the honest answer was not very. And when people hear you need to comply with a new cybersecurity regulation, the instinct is almost automatic. They picture expensive software, they picture hiring a consultant, they picture needing a security team they cannot afford. And because all of that feels out of reach, they freeze and do practically nothing. That is the panel on the left. But here is what I see again and again in the organization we work with at DNSC. Money is rarely the first thing that actually stops a small company. The real blockers are on the right. Not knowing what the first 3 steps even are, being afraid of doing it wrong, and starting at a list of 20 measures that feels absolutely impossible to afford all at once. So the problem is not really financial. It is a starting point problem and a confidence problem. And I understand why the fear is there. Cybersecurity is usually talked about in the language of large breaches or large companies. So it is easy for a small business to assume none of the affordable options apply to it. But they do. That is good news, because a starting point problem is something I can fix you in the next 25 minutes. You do not need me to find you a budget. You need me to show you the order to start in. So let me take the fear out of it, beginning with what this regulation is actually asking you to do. So what is the Cyber Resilience Act actually built out of? If you read it the way I have to read it, one thing jumps out immediately. The regulation's core requirements come in 2 parts. One part is about the security properties of the product itself, but the second part, and this is the part people miss, is about the processes the maker has to run. How you handle a vulnerability when it is discovered, how you push out an update, how you assess your risk, and how you document what you do throughout the entire life of the product. The law literally expects a way of working maintained over time. Notice what is not on the list. There is no single product you can buy off a shelf that makes you CRA compliant. Compliance is not a purchase. It is a set of decisions, responsibilities, and habits. It is that means most of the foundation is purely organizational, and organizational things are mostly free. This is the heart of my whole talk, so let me say it plainly from the start. When someone hears comply with the CRA and immediately reaches for their wallet, they have misread the assignment. The assignment is mostly about how you organize yourselves. Exactly the kind of discipline a well-run small business already applies to its finances, its safety obligations, and its quality. Think about food safety in a small restaurant. Nobody walks in and buys food safety as a product off a shelf. They keep a routine. The fridge is held at the right temperature. The checks get written down. Everyone knows who is responsible, and the inspector can see that they actually do it. Readiness under the CRA works the same way. It is a routine you run and can show, not a box you tick by spending money. We are simply applying the same discipline to cybersecurity. So let me show you the 2 layers that sit inside this idea. So the 2 layers, there are really 2 big layers to being ready, and it helps to separate them clearly. The first is the technical layer, the concrete controls, patching your software, turning on multi-factor authentication, keeping good backups. These are covered in my colleagues' sessions, so I will not repeat them. They matter, and some of them do cost money. But sitting underneath those controls is a second layer, the organizational layer. Who owns security in your company? How do you decide what to do first? How do you write down what you actually do, and how often do you revisit it? This is the layer that most small companies skip, and it is the layer that quite quietly decides whether you succeed or fail. And here is the point I really want to land. This organizational layer is not just good practice. The regulation expects it. The CRA asks you to systematically document your cybersecurity, and it ties what is expected to your size and your risk, because it uses the word proportionate. For the more formal routes, it even expects a description of who in management is responsible for security. And in plain terms, the law cares who is in charge and whether you can show your work. The beauty of this layer is that it is almost entirely free. A 10-person company that names an owner, understands its own risks, and keeps simple records will be more ready and, frankly, more credible to a customer or an auditor than a company that spent money on tools but has nobody accountable and nothing written down. I cannot stress this enough. The cheapest and most powerful move available to you is simply deciding who is responsible. It turns a vague obligation that belongs to no one into a concrete task that belongs to someone. And tasks that belong to someone are the ones that actually get done. So let me show you exactly what that free organizational layer looks like in practice. Here is the organizational layer broken into 5 lightweight habits. None of them needs a budget. First, an owner. Readiness fails when it is everyone's job, because then it is no one's job. Name one person who is accountable, even if it is only 10% of their week, even if in a very small firm that person is you. Accountability is the single highest leverage thing on this slide. Second, a simple risk view. You do not need a risk department or a complicated tool. You need to answer one question honestly. What could hurt this business the most, and how likely is it? For most of you, that is losing access to your data or someone hijacking your email on your accounts. Third, short written procedures. Not a binder, not a policy library. A single page. How do we patch? Who do we call if something goes wrong? What do we check before we onboard a new supplier? 1 page each. Fourth, evidence. From a regulator's chair, there is an unofficial rule. If it is not written down, it did not happen. The CRA explicitly expects you to document your cybersecurity, but, and this is the keyword again, proportionate to your risk. A small firm keeps small, simple records. That is enough. Fifth, a review rhythm. Security is not a project you finish. It is a habit you keep. Put a recurring 30-minute slot in the calendar to look at it. Notice that the law's own words run through all of this. Proportionate. The CRA does not expect a 20-person company to behave like a bank. It expects you to do the sensible things at your scale and to be able to show them. And it goes further than that. The regulation even allows the smallest firms to provide their documentation in a simplified format. That is the law itself telling you to have the rules that are meant to scale down for you. Now you may be thinking, that is still 5 things plus the technical controls. How could I afford all of it? That is exactly the right question, and it is the one I want to answer next. Let me address the affordability worry head on, because it is the trap that stops most small companies. The most common failure I see is this. A small firm reads a checklist of 20 measures, realizes it cannot afford to do all 20 at once, feels completely overwhelmed, and so it does none of them, nothing at all. That is the worst possible outcome, and it comes purely from believing that readiness is all or nothing. It is not. You are never expected to do everything on day one. Remember, the regulation itself is risk-based. It asks you to act in proportion to your risk, which means some things genuinely matter more than others for your particular business. I have watched companies spend a year worrying about some exotic threat that need not really apply to them, while leaving their email completely unprotected. Sequencing prevents exactly that kind of wasted effort. It points your limited time at the things that actually move your risk. So the real skill, especially when you have no budget, is not heroic effort. It is sequencing, deciding what comes first, what comes second, and what can honestly wait. Get the order right, and an unaffordable list quietly turns into a series of small, achievable steps. Let me give you a very simple way to set that order. Here are 3 questions. Ask them in this order, and they will set your priorities for you. Question 1, risk. Ask what would hurt you most, the harm that is both most likely and most damaging. For most small companies, the honest answer is losing your data or losing control of your accounts. Once you have named that, the protections that matter become obvious. Reliable backups and multi-factor authentication on your key accounts. Those rise straight to the top, and starting from risk is not just sensible, it mirrors how the regulation itself thinks, because everything in the CRA is anchored on a risk assessment. Question 2, the market. What are your customers and the larger companies you supply already asking you for? More and more, a big client's procurement form will ask whether you patch your system and whether you have someone to contact in an incident. When that happens, cybersecurity is not just good hygiene, it is the price of winning the contract. Readiness is becoming a condition of staying in the supply chain, and that turns a cost into revenue protection. Question 3, quick wins. What is free or nearly free and high impact? Turning on multi-factor authentication, writing down who to call when something goes wrong, switching on automatic updates. These take hours, not budgets, and they remove a surprising amount of your real-world risk. Do the things that score well on these 3 questions first, and give yourself explicit permission to leave everything else for a later phase. Let me make that concrete. Picture a 10-person company that makes a small connected device, let's say a smart sensor. Run the 3 questions. Risk. The worst case is someone pushing malicious firmware to their customers, so secure updates and a way to receive vulnerability reports rise straight to the top. Market. Their biggest buyer is already asking for a security contact and the list of the components inside the product, so they prepare those next. Quick wins. They switch on multi-factor authentication for their build system this week. In a single afternoon of thinking, an overwhelming regulation has turned into 3 concrete priorities at almost no cost. That one reordering is what turns an impossible list into a plan you can actually start. And speaking of a plan, let me show you what that looks like, a simple roadmap. Here's the journey as a staircase, but notice what each step actually is. It is not a list of tools to buy, it is how you build and run a plan you can keep. Step 1, make it someone's job. Before any single measure, name one accountable owner, even if that person is part-time, even if it is you. A roadmap with no owner is just a wish. A roadmap with an owner is a commitment. This one decision is the difference between a plan that moves and a document that gathers dust on a shared drive. Step 2, right size it. Decide honestly what is proportionate for a company your size and your level of risk. You are not expected to do everything at once, and you are certainly not expected to behave like a large enterprise. The regulation itself is built this way. It ties what is expected to your risk, and it even lets the smallest firms use a simplified documentation format. So give yourself explicit permission to do the sensible version, not the maximal one. Step 3, put owners and dates on it. Take the handful of priorities you have chosen and turn each one into a concrete commitment. Who is doing it and by when? You do not need expensive project management software. A single shared list or even a spreadsheet is enough. The simple act of writing a name and a date next to each item is what converts good intentions into things that actually get done. Step 4, keep it alive. Security is not a project you finish once. It is a routine you maintain. Put a recurring slot in the calendar, even a short one, to review where you are, keep your simple records current, and improve just one thing each time. A modest plan that you revisit 4 times a year will quietly overtake a perfect plan that you wrote once and never opened again. Look at what this is, not a purchase and not a last-minute scramble before a deadline. It is a way of governing your own readiness, sized to your reality, with someone clearly accountable for it. And when you are ready to put concrete measures into this frame and track them over time, the Cyberfort platform can generate and keep a roadmap exactly like this that is shown in my colleague's session. So I will leave the tooling to them. My job is to make sure you walk out with the method. Before we get there, though, let me warn you about the mistakes I watch small companies make, because avoiding them is free and it saves you a great deal of pain. Now the mistakes, and notice that almost none of them are technical. They are mistakes of organization, which means they are free to fix. 1. Treating compliance as one-off project with an end date. The CRA expects you to handle vulnerabilities across the whole life of your product. So readiness is a routine, not a finish line you cross once. 2. Buying tools before defining the process. A dashboard you have no process to use is money spent to feel safer, not to be safer. Decide how you will work first, then buy only what supports that. 3. No clear owner. I have said it before and I will keep saying it because it is the single highest leverage fix on this slide. 4. Copying a big company's program. Proportionality runs all the way through the regulation. A 10-person firm that tries to behave like a multinational will simply stall under the weight of it. Do the sensible, scaled-down version. 5. Ignoring your suppliers and the open source components you depend on. The CRA actually expects manufacturers to exercise due diligence on third-party and open source components and to pass on any vulnerabilities they find. In practical terms for you, ask your suppliers the same basic questions your customers are asking you. 6. Leaving documentation until an audit or a customer questionnaire forces it, and then it is a panic. Write as you go. A few honest sentences captured today are worth far more than a perfect document you never get around to producing. If you want the short version of all 6, here it is. Do not try to buy your way out of thinking. Do not wait until something forces your hand, and do not pretend to be bigger than you are. Almost every painful situation I have watched a small company fall into traces back to one of those 3 habits, and every one of them is completely free to avoid. Fix these 6, and you will have sidestepped most of the pain I watched small companies walk straight into. And here's your reassuring part, which I want to say from my side of the table. I want to close the substance with the view from my side of the table because I think it should reassure you, and I will speak generally here since every company situation is its own. First, the regulation is proportionate by design. It repeatedly ties what is expected to your size and your risk, and it provides simple routes for the smallest firms. So the goal is not perfection. The sensible posture is straightforward. Understand your main risks, do the reasonable things for a company your size, make sure someone owns it, and be able to show what you do. I will be honest that doing those things is not a magic certificate of compliance, but a company that can answer who owns this, what are our main risks, and can we show what we do about them, is in a genuinely strong position, whatever its size or budget. Second, you are not expected to work this out alone. The Romanian National Cybersecurity Directorate, like other national authorities across Europe, is part of the support system the regulation envisage, including awareness and advice aimed at smaller companies and helpdesk support for the reporting duties, which the CRA specifically extends to micro, small, and medium-sized manufacturers. At the European level, a single reporting platform is being built so that if something does go wrong, you report it once in one place rather than many times over. The infrastructure is genuinely being designed with companies your size in mind. Third, on timing. Most of the heavier obligations phase in over the coming years, with the full requirements arriving in 2027 and the reporting duties starting sooner. That is not a reason to relax and wait. It is the opposite. The cheap organizational groundwork we talked about today is exactly what you should be doing now. So that when the deadline arrives, you are calmly adjusting rather than scrambling. Starting early is itself the budget-friendly strategy because calm sequence work is always cheaper than last-minute rush. Which brings me to where the tools come in. So, one last thing before I hand back, everything I have given you today is deliberately human. Decisions, ownership, sequencing, because that part has to come first. A tool cannot decide your priorities for you. Only you know your business and your risk. But once you have made those decisions, you should absolutely not do the heavy lifting by hand. In my colleague sessions, the Cyberfort platform is shown. It can assess where you currently stand, help generate a roadmap, very much like the one we just built together, and give you ready-made templates and policies so that you are not starting at a blank page wondering how to start. So, Think of my part of this workshop as the map and the platform as the vehicle. As you watch my colleague's session, do it with your own company in mind, and you will see exactly where the ideas from my talk turn into buttons and you can actually click. Now, let me leave you with the one thing I most want you to remember. So, if you take just one thing from my half hour, take this. You do not need money to start, you need a decision. On Monday morning, name the person in your organization who owns cyber readiness, even if that person is you, even if it is only part of their week. And then, together, write a simple list of what you have, your devices, your key systems, the data you cannot afford to lose. That single act costs absolutely nothing. It can be done this week. And this is genuinely the foundation that everything else is built on. The inventory and the owner from phase 0 of our staircase. Here is my whole session in one sentence. CRA readiness starts with a decision and the process, not with a budget. Do the free organizational work first. Sequence the rest by risk. Write down what you do, and you will end up more ready and more credible to your customers and to a regulator than companies that spend far more money than you did. So that is where I leave the substance, and it is the one line I would most like you to carry on, to carry out of the room with you. Thank you very much for your attention. If you remember only one line from me, let it be this: CRA readiness starts with a decision and a process, not with a budget. I will hand back to our moderator now, and I would be very glad to take your questions in the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Well, this session highlighted a very important point. The CRA readiness, we see that is not only for the company with mature security teams. I've created a poll into the chat, and these results show that the main challenge, if we are watching closely, the main challenge for SMEs is not only the budget. The biggest barriers are unclear regulatory requirements and the lack of time and resources. This confirms why a practical step-by-step approach is very important. SMEs need clear guidance, prioritization, templates, and tools that help them understand where to start and how to move towards CRA readiness in a very simple way. So, as my colleague said, you can start with realistic, manageable steps, knowing your asset. The asset inventory is the best part in everything, even if we are talking a small task or if we are talking about transition to post-quantum cryptography, which is a huge domain. But in all this, we need to have an inventory asset to define our responsibility, to document our decision. I think the most important thing when we are talking about the CRA is how you prove that you are compliant with, how you manage your risks, and how you gradually improve your cybersecurity posture. So now we are moving from concepts and recommendations to a very practical session. It's the live demonstration of Cyberfort capabilities. Here you will see how the platform can support CRA readiness in a very practical way, including all those mentioned, the vulnerability scanning, compliance, the dashboard, the policy templates, how you are doing the risk assessment, the readiness score, and all this. Because they are important and they need tools, you need tools, sorry, that can help you to understand where you are, what gaps you have to cover, and what action you should prioritize. I am pleased to invite Nikos Kekatos from Clone Systems. It's our technical integrator to present Cyberfort platform and walk us through the main functionalities. Nikos, happy to have you here. And please take the screen.
Also, I'm Nikos Kekatos. I am with Clone Systems. We are the technical coordinators of Cyberfort, and Clone Systems is a cybersecurity company. So we are based in Cyprus. We are very much interested in compliance and in all the frameworks. We are also PCI DSS compliant, which is one other well-known standard and regulation that we have been a vendor the last almost 18, 19 years. And what is relevant for here is that we also sell. So apart from the fact that we are creating this platform, and as member of consortium, we are trying to assist with offering solutions to support and prepare for CRA. But we are also, I mean, our own products are also fall under CRA because we are a cybersecurity company, which also means that we are in the important category, typically class 1, with all the CM, intrusion detection, and other software solutions. The goal here is to just to give you a first kind of like to have some sort of visual also. Michaela, I think you stop sharing.
1 sec, we will try to find the right presentations. Can you see it?
Yes, but yeah, please put it in full screen and
yeah.
Take out the speaker notes, please.
Okay. Well, sorry for that. Sec. Yay. It's okay, yeah?
Okay, yes, perfect. Okay, so let me continue then. So maybe you can move to the next slide. Okay. So the idea for this short presentation was to kind of like to give you a little bit again the context about what Cyberfort is actually doing, what we are actually trying to build, before I actually take you to the platform where everyone can enroll, see, and use it. So I think that this information is already described very nicely from my previous colleagues about the SME challenge. Like Tudor said, that there are a lot of obligations, risk controls, and policies. So this is a new regulation. So people need to learn, okay, whether they are in scope of CRA or not, what is a product with digital element. And especially so for some companies, this is something new, while for some other companies that they already have experience with similar regulations, this is kind of like one additional thing that they need to care about. So they have NIST, they have SOC 2, they have ISO, so now they need to care also about CRA. So, and this is what it was already discussed, that typically either there are small teams that they don't have experience or budget or to learn and to study about these things and to implement them, or there are large companies that even there they have their own kind of like burden, and typically there are not a lot of dedicated people on it. Although we think that this is going to change, and what we like to say is that having a structured approach and trying to be proactive, it is something that it can help. And
Nico, sorry
yes?
for interrupting. I think now you should have the right of the presenting. So if you
Michaela, let's continue for now
Okay.
now like this,
Okay.
and then I
Okay.
switch when I do the demo maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, but thank you. So yeah, so this is the challenge. So, and the idea is that I think that also what was answered in the questions here is that most of the people, they don't actually know what it is about. So they don't really know what they actually have to do. And there are all these nice webinars and all this nice discussion and all these LinkedIn posts, and still it's not very clear about what needs to be done. So maybe, Michaela, maybe you go to the next slide, please. So let me go more concretely about this CRA compliance path. It was pretty much repeated, but I'm not sure if it is in the same exactly context. So there are these three categories. Well, actually five, but three core ones. Whether you are a manufacturer, whether you are importer, or whether you are a distributor. They all have their own responsibility, but the most important one is the one where you actually build the product. So in that case, you are actually the most responsible about what the product will be doing, what will be their ingredients, the blocks, and the full support. Okay, so in that case, the first step is to figure out whether you are in scope or not. So this means that you need to identify, whether your product is normal in the default category, important, class 1 or 2, or critical. So this is like we said that, okay, some apps are simply default apps, but if you have a password manager or something, or some application where you use and you gather a lot of data, it is important. So the critical, they tend to contain hardware, and they are cases like chips. The higher the level, the higher the stricter the checks. So one step is that the company need to find out the scope. The second step is about the risk assessment. So what it was discussed is that we need to find out, and it is necessary to find out what can go wrong with the product, and why, and how bad this can be. And well, once this risk analysis has been made, the next step is also to see how you can react to it and how you can remediate and use controls to solve these potential problems. So step 3 are the essential requirements. So these contain the Annex 1. And this includes all the cybersecurity measures that Marius initially talked about. So that we need to be secure by design, we need to be safe out of the box, we cannot have simple passwords, admin like everywhere. We need to have controls, strong logins. What else? So we need to reduce the attack surfaces. We need to be, to provide secure updates and all the cybersecurity requirements that we also elaborate before. So the next part is about the technical documentation. So some of this part is already being defined while the legislation and the harmonized standards are being put forward. So there are some parts that they might change in the upcoming period. But the core idea about what technical documentation need to be done will remain the same. So, and the idea is that here you provide, so the approach is that you have a product. You want to justify and to say that you are CRA compliant. Okay, then someone is going to check whether you are actually CRA compliant or not. And this is typically done through the evidences. And one of the main evidences is this technical documentation. Another check is the conformity assessment. So the conformity assessment can be self-assessment or a third-party assessment. So if you don't have a very critical, very important, if you are on the default category, then self-assessment might be enough. However, in more important categories, it is obliged to do a third-party assessment. So this means that depending on which country you are living in and your company is operating, this means that there will be from the CSERT and there will be a notifying body which will be assigned to take care of this audits. These are still things that are being discussed on an EU level on the different countries. So there are market surveillance authorities and notifying bodies for each country. The conformity assessment is one part, and then we have the declaration or the presumption of conformity. So the idea here is that, okay, you have the statement, which is a legal statement that you say that, look, my product follows the law. So you sign it, you keep it, and then if something bad happens, you know that this is something that you have already done. The CE marking is a well-known thing that this is the label on the product, and this is common for actual products, for hardware products, or for commercial products, but this can also be done also for software. And then the final step is that there is the need for report and maintenance. So it's not like you just you sell your product and you never care again. Now it is obligatory for all the manufacturers, for all the bodies, importers and distributors to actually be responsible for throughout the product duration. So this means also that if something you recognize a vulnerability or a mistake, that you still need to react. And there are certain legislations like what it was mentioned before about the 24 hours, about the incident reporting, and about the ENISA and the EU level requirements. So this is something that is important as well. So there is the reporting duty on 11th of September, which is upcoming. And there are the full support that needs to be, it will start in December 2027. Okay, I'm making this connection here so that I will show you also what we are doing. So the core idea, Michaela, can you go to the next slide? The very core idea that I would like you to keep is that the compliance is chain. And this is also what we have identified with our workshops, with our training, with internal discussions, and also with experience from previous, from other frameworks and other compliance platforms. That, yeah, let me see about that from left to right. So we start with your asset. The asset is in the case of CRA, the product. So every product might have some risks, some things that can go wrong. Then the idea is that, okay, you have identified that there's a possible risk, that you need to do something about it. And this is why you put the controls. So these are the protections, the things that you actually do to reduce the risk. The controls need to be documented somewhere. So this is what also an auditor will come and check. And these are the policies. So the controls are backed by the policies. And these are the written rules about how a company should proceed, especially when creating such products. And the final step is that the policy also is connected with the CRA objectives. So the CRA objectives are actually the articles of the law. So I will continue also. This is, I think, this is enough for now, that every asset carries risk, every risk traces to a control, every control needs, so every risk needs to be mitigated by a control. The controls are documented and consolidated in policies, and then these policies are connected to the CRA. So if you have this whole traceability chain, this is also a very important step. So when an auditor comes, and also for to actually better improve your processes. Michaela, maybe you can go to the next slide, please. So what I would like to show here is and the analysis that we have made so far about the product from clone. So the product that we are actually building, we are selling in the market, and the application of this structured methodology to our product. And so far we have identified 30 risks. So our product, just I have a slide and I will show it, but the product is a security monitoring system. So it watches computers and networks for signs of attacks. And the idea is that it can also react automatically. So we use open source tools, open source libraries, and we also have AI in the loop to actually assist with remediation and with actions. Based on the law, this falls under important class 1. And we are also a manufacturer. So the concrete numbers are 30 risks that they can be mitigated by 65 controls, and these are documented in 32 policies. And so far, out of the 41 objectives, this covered 27. So the objective, just to highlight, is that the objective is actually the objective is connected with the articles of the law. This is how we do it. And on the bottom, you can also see, for example, the top focus area. What we identified that, for example, we had a lot of risks about application API security, identity and access control a little bit less, and also we identified also some risks about AI and autonomous operations. So the message is that even as a cybersecurity company who have been building products for the last 20 years, and we are we are selling and sharing, we are offering services. There are certain procedures that you might not feel that that it is necessary to implement, and this is also what we also identified. So even for us, it was something that it has been very helpful. I will just, Michaela, maybe you can go to the next slide. So just to show also one specific, this compliance chain that what we're calling. So on the left is one component of the CM. So this component is the manager. So the CM manager is one of the blocks that exist in our component, in our product. So there is, let's say a risk, and this risk might be a weak login security. So this means that, for example, someone can break in if the login is not strong enough. To reduce the risk, we can add the control. This control is a multi-factor authentication, this MFA that we talked about. This means that, okay, you need more than just a password to log into the tool. And this rule is documented in our policy, this policy 1. This is password policy. So we have the risk 18, which is the broken or weak authentication. We have one control, which is the secure authentication, IAM 5, and this is added in a policy. What I would like to say here is that to prove that this link is working is that we also need to have evidence. So we need to show that, look, we're actually doing that. And depending on what is the risk about, what is the product about, what is the control about, there might be different evidence that they might be needed. So in that case, for example, we could have some sort of screenshots, we could have some sort of copies of our settings, some syslogs or some logging records, and also some sort of instantiation about how we actually did this MFA. So this is combination of screenshots, documentation, and potentially even an auditor could even ask for how to see that in practice. But the idea here is that if you follow this approach, that you can have a real product, you can have a real risk, you can have a control, a written policy, and you have actual proof. So this compliance chain map is what Cyberfort is helping a lot about. So to be more specific about the Cyberfort, so we have a central platform. So what you see in this slide is that this is built for SMEs. And so we are trying to do it user-friendly. We are trying to have templates. We are trying to assist with AI. And we already have integrated a lot of other tools in our platform so that the user can directly go and use one integrated platform so that they don't have to go in different places. On the right, what I'm showing is that this CRA scope assessment, CRA readiness assessment, and compliance advisor. So these are sub-modules that the first two we are also All of them are accessible in the website, but for the majority of them, we require the user to be registered, also for security reasons, because we have monitoring tools that we cannot really allow to everyone to use out of the box. But for the scope and the readiness assessments, we have some questionnaires and some already pre-filled analysis that we are sharing for everyone, and it is just on a guest mode, so everyone can see and check them. We also have a compliance advisor, which means that based on the website and some sort of fine-tuning of LLMs, we are already providing a more concrete answer than to the SME about whether a company is compliant under CRA and other standards as well. So, and the core of the part of the platform just is that is this CRA preparedness platform. So we have a central dashboard. We have the assessments. We have the different frameworks. We have assets and products, risks, controls, and policies. This is what I discussed already about. We have incidents. So this, for example, there was a question, I think, in the chat about the incident reporting in ENISA in September. Well, this is still to be decided. Supposedly, there was a big tender from ENISA around 11 or 12 millions that there were a group of companies that they would actually build a single reporting platform. But to the best of our knowledge and based on the ongoing discussions on an EU level, there have been some back and forth about how this will be. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I know, I'm an expert on the policy discussions and what is happening under closed doors, but there have been some difficulties about what will happen with the omnibus and the single reporting platform and the timeline. So it has been discussion of the working groups, and maybe there might be a change there. But in any case, what we have done is that, and what it will be needed is that we will all need to report incidents. And even if that it might not be the single reporting platform, or they might give us a different kind of like place to do it, we will still need to do it. And this incidents is what also we have an incident reporting mechanism that we have also built in Cyberfort. Okay, we also have security scanning tools. So some of the polls, they talk about vulnerability handling. And this is what it was also mentioned in the previous presentation. So vulnerability handling means that you don't have any known vulnerabilities. You need to check your code for errors. You need to perform testing, rigorous testing, and you need to be able that, look, what you are doing is actually, yeah, to the best of your knowledge, correct. And this is something that we have added so that we don't only stay on the legal side, but we also have a practical solution which can go and help these policies. So we have scanners that they can scan your product for different issues at a different level. And if they identify vulnerabilities or issues or problems or risks, then the policies can also be adapted. So there is a nice kind of like linking between the scanning tools and the GRC side, which is the more kind of like document-based approach, and the actual technical side, and the link between the two. Also, to the best of our knowledge, this is, I think, this is the only tool that currently exists that is doing something like that. I'm not sure also that I've heard about another tool, but I have never seen it in practice, so I don't know what is the current status. But this is also some nice feature that we're adding. So there is documentation, like documentation policies, technical documentation, and technical requirements. There is a compliance chain, like I said, the administrator sides. So meaning that we have we have a multi-tenant platform, so that each different organization can actually use it. They can also have an org admin. They can have they can add their own users. And we have tried to add a lot of settings, a lot of features there. And finally, the AI is also already partially added to assist with some questions, to assist with some formulas, and to give some guidance. Okay, Michaela, I'm going very slow, but okay, I will reach the point of This is the platform. Look at it. But in any case, I think it's also very important that the platform is open for everyone to use. So I think I will give a glimpse of what we're doing, and it will be very nice. I mean, we all look very forward to you using the platform, and we just need to go through a very quick kind of like security check that the emails are the correct emails. Okay, so let me go to the next slide, please. So I said all these things to actually illustrate that Cyberfort is trying to cover a lot of the things that the law obliges, that is required from the law. And of course, things are going to change and they are being defined, but overall, out of these 8 steps, I would say that we are in a very good level in covering most of them in a very good depth as well. So, for example, for the scope and the classification, we have built an assessment, a scope assessment, to help the companies checking about whether they fall under CRA or not. We also have a preparedness, so a company can run it as a guest, even without signing up, and you can also get this kind of like criticality and also the vertical profile. So whether it is important, normal, or critical, the default categories also, but what exactly it will be. It will be SIEM, password manager, hardware, and so on. We also have the readiness assessment. So another questionnaire, which is a bit more detailed technically, which kind of like highlights in a simple way what are the actual steps from the law. So by asking you, by filling in and answering these questions, you already get kind of like a score about how ready you can be. We have also a gap analysis inside the platform to check up, but this is also on the real data. So which objectives you fill in, what you can export as a PDF or as an XML or as a JSON to the auditor. So we cover the step 1 very, very well. We have also a risk assessment module. We have a risk register, and we're also getting the risks from baseline kind of like security requirements, and also by analyzing what is going on with the CRA and with the upcoming acts. Essential requirement number 3 is the technical documentation, the other security requirements, what I mentioned about the objectives and the controls. Step 3 is the essential requirements, and they are the objectives and the controls and the actual things that the cybersecurity things that they need to be followed. The technical documentation is the technical documents, the PDFs that we are creating, and also the declaration of conformity, and we also have an approach for the CE marking. So conformity assessment is a self-questionnaire, a list of questions that each company needs to fill in. This is also mapped to the law. This is based on our own analysis from the lawyers. This is cross-mapped with what is happening with ENISA, with the EUCC, with the other projects, with whatever is public. And we are also validated by DNSC. So we have this conformity assessment, and this conformity assessment can take two steps, 2 directions. One is the self-assessment. So the self-assessment is the one that you can fill in yourself, but we're also the platform also offers the opportunity for an auditor to actually come in the platform and use it. So you can invite someone external to actually show them, this is my policies, this is my GRC, this is what I've done. I've kept track of what I'm doing the last 1 year or so, and we're offering this step there. CE marking is the next step, and finally the reporting. We are tracking the reporting, and I will show you also the documents. Okay, so just one side note is that we cannot have a physical CE marking, and some of the things they are also being under definition, like who is going to do the audit, who will be responsible, the incident reporting side. There are still some certain things that they need to be decided on an initial level, but we have been trying to be proactive, build the pipeline, the workflow, and the machinery, so that when we have the concrete APIs or the concrete info, we will be very ready to adapt. Michaela, can you please go to the next slide? So our product is, and what I will show you today is this secure XDR product, which is essentially security monitoring system, this well-known CM or SIM in proper English. And this is a product that we are manufacturing, and it falls under CRA on important class 1. So it has three key parts. So the agents are small products that they are installed in each computer. So in each device, they can work on different operating systems. They are so I will get back to the question maybe later, or maybe it gets answered a little bit. So the agents, they look for products. So this is one big component, let's say. The second one is the manager. So the manager is the central brain. This is also what I'm writing here about the Wazoo open search, that we have some dependence also from open source software. There you collect everything, you have the dashboard, your records, and so on. And the third part is the AI remediation block, which is kind of like a helper. But like I said, it gets some inputs, it uses some LLMs, and it gets some automated actions on each device. But so the idea is that we need the main duties are that we need to do it secure from scratch, find any weaknesses, to make updates, to prepare all the proof and documentation, and be ready to report any documents. And the idea is that we have made this analysis, and I will show you also how this kind of like how this will look like in a more complete fashion. Maybe next slide, Michaela, and I will go quickly to the next one. So what I would like to show you is that I will highlight these frameworks, risks, templates. We have the vulnerability scanning integrated, the compliance chain map, how you do it, and also some proper these assessments. So we have also gap analysis. Michaela, I think that now I can share my screen, and I will try to go quickly to the next one. I'm sharing everything, so just to be safer that it will work. So our platform is hosted in Cyberfort, so you can access it through the button over here. We have the guest mode. So the CRA scope assessment is what I mentioned before. So it has 5 steps, and it gives you an answer whether you fall under CRA or not. Of course, you can never be 100% certain, because some of the questions are a little bit also open. So we give you also some kind of like, know that these things also need to be checked. But it is that, okay, you can fill in the name of your company. You can fill in your point of contact, how many employees you have. So for example, 10 to 50, what is your product called? We're talking about the secure XDR, what is the role what is your role relation to in the product? So whether you are a manufacturer, importer, distributor, but there are also this authorized representative and integrator. So, and this has these are kind of like new roles. They have been kind of like added, because it is also important to see how companies that live outside the EU, they will be able to sell products inside the EU. So they need to have this authorized representatives, for example. Okay, so manufacturers, and then the questions. For example, is the product based on the market under your own name or trademark? This is a yes, for example. Are you responsible for security updates, maintenance, or vulnerability handling for this product? Yes or no? So level 1 is the high level step of qualification. Part 2 is about the product qualification. So we are trying to guide with simple questions to get this information, which will tell you whether you are CRA compliant or not, whether you fall under CRA or not. So whether it contains software, hardware, or both. whether your product is connected to the internet, because this is also important, whether it's connected to a service or not. So if you say no, most likely you might not fall under CRA. What best describes the form of your product, whether it's standalone hardware, standalone software, it is embedded, SaaS, and so on. So I would say software, is a remote service involved or not? So this is also important. Who is the product primarily intended for? Consumers, professional users, public sector? Okay, I think, okay, we don't have to go very deeply in each one of them, but so just to give you an idea, so the part 3 is about the regulatory and market context. So one very important part is, of course, whether the product is placed under a EU market or not. One important question also that was already highlighted is that there are overlapping legislations in EU and in the world, but we care about the EU. So for some very critical products that they are safety critical or very important for different reasons, that these products might not fall under CRA. So a question here is that whether about medical devices, about motor vehicles, civil aviation, or some other regulated sectors. So for our case, for clone systems, this is not under these sectoral regimes. And also the product, whether it is included exclusively for military defense or national security use. So this is a no. So if a product falls under this category, this means that most likely you already have other legislation, and most likely CRA will not be needed for you. So some more questions is about whether it is marketed as cybersecurity product or not. So typically, if it is marketed as cybersecurity product, this means that there might be higher kind of like possibility, higher risks. And then there are some sort of like, again, the core ideas of the law, but just as a question. So whether we do authentication or identity management. For example, now I will just respond randomly. So access control, whether we do network analysis, whether we do boot or secure startups, whether we perform firmware or update management, whether we have a firewall, for example, maybe a malware protection, maybe some commands they might not have, security log or monitoring, and remote administration. So these are kind of like these 9 core, also essential requirements that we will see later. And the final part is about this readiness. So whether we conduct risk assessment, whether we have technical documentation for the product, vulnerability disclosure, SBOM, and the procedure. Okay. And so even though I started replying for clone, then I switched at some point, and the idea is here that most likely, if you have a free and open source software, you are outside the scope of CRA, and this is true. We have, so just to go now a little bit, I'm going too slowly, sorry. I'm just trying to show that this is the first step that you need to identify about the scope. And this is kind of like you get a yes or a no, whether you fall under CRA or not. Just to go back to login, we have this CRA readiness assessment. CRA readiness assessment is a little bit more advanced questions that you can actually check, and they can give you more of a metric. So they can also give you kind of like based on the baseline and our analysis and our own data, how exactly you give kind of like a scoring. I will just reply now some random answers. Risk management is the first step. So I will say, so formal methodology, risk management approach, continue, testing, whether we do testing, vulnerabilities, rigorous security testing, code reviews, the things that we already discussed before, security by default, security by design, security controls, whether we have, for example, for unauthorized access, vulnerability. Of course, this needs to be analyzed by each company, by each SME individually, and cross-checked. And what we have done here, we have also had some info buttons so that we can help with that, vulnerability management. Also, yeah, I'm running really out of time. So we have a software bill of material, product documentation, submission of the form. And what you get based on these answers is that we're actually, you get a critical readiness score. We report about our methodology, how we weighted. We report about the core problems, whether it's risk assessment, vulnerabilities, or documentation. In that case, for example, this was about vulnerabilities. And what is missing? We need to have evidence of secure development life cycle. We need to have patch support policy, coordinate vulnerability policy and technical documentations, and recommend next steps. Okay. So the idea that once you get this information, so you know that you are in CRA, under CRA, and you have a first idea about the report, then what we're offering you is a platform that is trying to help you to be CRA ready for sure. So I would say even CRA compliant, but we might have some lawyers here, so it is a little bit of unclear at the moment. But definitely our platform can help you be CRA ready to prepare your documents, your policies. We have a CRA example which you can see and you can use. We have the guide with the process that what are the steps. We need to see the framework. We need to add the assets, identify the risks, put the register the controls, create the policies, run the assessments, complete the objective checklist, and have the chain at the end. And this is the whole thing. We have the compliance advisor here. So for example, what are the requirements based on an analysis? But what I think I just want to show maybe very quickly is that we have already made our analysis with our own products. We have, for example, this security UXDR demo. What you need to do is that you add the name, the version, the asset type is very important. We have a predefined set of types, mapping also to the CRA, to the discussions with the vertical standards and to the acts. And so, for example, for our product, we have Secure XDR. It's a software product. It is active. We are a manufacturer. It falls under which category? We have already defined all the set of categories that are possible. And now also with the vertical standards, the vertical profiles. So network map management, and there are 21, or how many are they? I don't remember. 21 most likely. Vertical standards that each one of them has their own profile and has its own requirement. There, you also need to add your license, specification, description, and the software bill of material and the IP address. This is if it is run publicly, but you can also run it locally. So our platform is also, we are also offering an early version of our platform free. So you can also download also the source code and play with it. So you first need to go, you check the asset types, you register your assets. The next part is you go in the risk registry. We have a risk management module, which is also standalone. So there is a list of risks, endpoint, different categories with different likelihood, severity, and status. Based on the type of category, based on the asset category, you also pre-select specific type of risks. And we already have done our analysis, and we already, in our case, we assume that out of the 110, actually 100 are already part of the risk that they all fall under the security our XDR solution. We can do risk assessment for each specific risk. So, for example, if we see about the whatever the phishing attacks, although this is not the example, that you have the initial risk, so impact likelihood, and you also have a target risk. So this is a standard risk management approach that is being followed. And then once you apply the controls, then you can see the reduction in the risk. We have the control registry. We have already a baseline, a set of, we can import, we can create our own controls, but you also have baseline controls based on different existing frameworks, baselines, and so on. So different control sets. So now, for example, I have already imported the ones from CRA, CSA, ISO, different CSA, and some baseline controls. The control library is a templated one. We will add more templates, but we already have around 15 templates. And we also have the CRA horizontal controls. The documentation talks about the policy. So this is something also that is very important, that we have already, based on the analysis that we have made, the other frameworks, we are offering a pre-templated, a pre-set of 90 different policies that the users can use and follow. So for password, for acceptable use policy, access management, antivirus, so patch management, this is template. So you can take it, you can use it. We see when was the last update date, who is the owner, thank you, Michael, the draft, the approach, what it contains, and so on. And so these are also anonymized in general, and we have this list of templates. So we have templates as a documents based on what we have been using commercially, but also based on the analysis that we have made also with for the project and with the legal and authorities validation. So we have this list of 90 policies, and these policies are already preceded. So you can actually take the policy and see what is going on. Architectural diagrams, evidences, so you can add evidences, and we also have the approach about the declaration of conformity. Okay, I'm really running out of time. So the technical file contains this patch management that Marius was talking in the beginning. It contains about vulnerability disclosure, some kind of like the core technical information that we need to implement. And we also have these links about how you go from the asset to the risk to the controls, the policy to the objectives. And this can be done on a broader level. So that this can be done on the entire organization for multiple products. We actually have functionalities about how you do that with NIS2, but this is outside the scope of this discussion. What I would just like to show is that if I did correctly, let's do this one. Okay, here it is. So we have, and what you can see here is that these are all the links in your own organization. But this is what you can do, for example, okay, this would be risk 33 actually, but anyway, the specific doesn't matter. You have your asset. It is linked with 4 risks. Now I'm just displaying one risk. This risk can be mitigated by these 2 specific controls, authentication and availability policies. These policies are documented in the specific, so these controls are the steps that the company needs to follow, documented in the policies. And these policies are also linked to the legislations. Okay, now I changed something, but we can have very nice graphs about a specific link, about a specific asset, about a specific risk, and so on. So you can also you can do it as you can reduce the focus. So you can say, okay, look, I have one control. Is it documented in more than one policy, for example? We have the gap analysis based on the objective. This is also export PDF. So this is something that it gives you also the information concretely. This is not the gap analysis. Yes, this is the gap analysis. So objectives, compliant, coverage, policies, what are the assessments, the chapter breakdown, what we have covered, and so on. I will just show you how an assessment looks like. You have the framework, you select your type, maybe the demo, and this is a list of 52 questions. So each of these questions needs to be answered, it needs to be linked to a policy, needs to be studied by a compliance officer or the expert in each organization, and it needs to be complemented by an evidence. So, for example, this one, have you undertaken an assessment of cybersecurity risks? So this is a yes. This is a risk management policy. This is an evidence description, and we need to also add an evidence to actually show it. So we need to have a screenshot of a previous test that we have undertaken. Final things is that we have security scanners. We already have analyzed our tools. So you can already create a software bill of material and put it in the asset management tab. So we have this software bill of material generator here. This is already integrated, and these are examples of what we have done. So you can have a very big so this contains 515 different kind of like modules, 494 different libraries. So this can contain something very large products, and this is what is obliged. This is what is needed also for the compliance. So we have security scanning tools for networks, for web vulnerabilities. We have run them already on our websites, on our modules. We have code analysis where you can check your zip code, your source code, but also you can add directly repositories here. So you can add your repository here, for example, and it can run. Dependency checking, and we have a nice dashboard about all the scan findings. So this is for the whole organization. So this is something that we're actually using. So 463 findings, and this is the last one that we ran. Audit engagement is that the case that I mentioned before, that you want to invite someone to check this information, your policies, your links. So we offer this option that you can invite someone by email with these magic links. Final, organization settings, AI backups, the users per organization. So if you are an org, there is the super admin, the org admin, and the org user. So the org admin can invite other people from the organization. Of course, we have a lot of different filtering. But it doesn't matter so much. But the idea is that this is designed to support bigger organizations. But even with smaller SMEs, it can work very well. That you can add all your users there. The audit history, so what you have done, all the history about what you have done. This is also important because the CRA also requires this 10-year retention, audit correlations, background jobs. So final thing, and I stop. This is we are offering the possibility to do this also as a background, so that you check what you need every day, every hour. And for example, I can show you here that we are scanning for vulnerabilities every hour or every day. Okay, and sorry for taking longer. We have CRA modes, have different things, but I think what I just want to highlight is that we also have AI, Cyberfort AI Assistant, is that you can use our product, our tool. We have invested a lot of effort on trying to cover as many things as possible. You just need a simple kind of like a registration, and we can let you in. And sorry for taking longer. I hope it was somehow at least useful. I know that I ran out of time. It's the first
It's
time this happens.
okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, I know you are very precise and okay. Maybe you can answer to some question into the chat. But thank you also for the demonstration. What we have just seen is very relevant for our Cyberfort mission, helping SMEs and not only translate the CRA readiness into concrete action. I think it was a very useful moment because it helped move from theory to practice and to see to offer the solution. The key message is after all this session is that the CRA readiness do not have to start with all the complex processes or expensive tools. It starts with understanding your asset, identifying your risk, assessing vulnerabilities, you document your decision, and you build a clear roadmap for improvement. Our Cyberfort platform is designed to support exactly this journey, to help you structure your cybersecurity readiness, to follow the progress and better understand what practical steps are needed for compliance. And here, let's see if we can have some questions, or if you want to enter in contact with us, you can write me or Nikos or use the Q&A session. It will remain open. And yeah, if there are some other suggested improvement, please let us know. After this workshop, you will receive all the training materials. You will receive all the some documentation to help you have an idea about the next steps. And also, please, it's very important to use the feedback questionnaire from our website. It also will help to improve and to consider our position in this European project. As I've mentioned, so this is an open source project, so it's free to use. We can help you or assist you if there are some issues or something that you didn't fully understand today. And please stay in contact with us. If there is not anything else, I will close this session. Thank you for your participation and hope to see you again in our next events. Thank you, Nikos. Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice rest of the day.
I can answer the question if someone wants. Yeah, because I see a hand.
Okay,
Maybe.
let's see. Sorry, let's try to allow the mic. Okay, please, Doina.
No, just wanted to thank you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay then.